Hello, if you're watching this, this is Mom on the phone, Miracle Mom. This is a picture of her from 20 years ago from a family reunion. And the reason we call her Miracle Mom is that every day she's living on borrowed time because she should have died back in December. Um, we'll talk about that. There are other videos that talk about exactly what happened, but it's a miracle that you're hearing her voice right now, that I'm hearing her voice right now. And so I was inspired to start documenting my conversations with Mom. This is a phone call. She's on the phone. Here's the phone right here for all of you to see. Don't worry, it doesn't have your phone number on it. Nobody's going to call you Mom. Say hi, Mom.
Hi, hello everyone. Welcome.
Today, I want to stick with the theme of miracles and being Good Friday, April 9th, 2020. I have a question for you, Mom. A couple questions. Do you have a favorite miracle from the Old Testament?
From the Old Testament.
Any that stand out to you?
Yeah, I do. I think the miracle of what I would consider a miracle in the Old Testament was when God parted the Red Sea
Mm-hmm.
for the children of Israel.
Why does that stand out to you?
The image of it stands out to me. The visual image of what that must have been like.
Right. And it's hard to argue with that being miraculous, right? Like, yeah, there's no natural event that could have accounted for the the waters separating and them crossing on dry ground, right? That's what it says.
Correct.
Like some people could say, well, the plagues, the 10 plagues, well, yeah, they sometimes locusts do come and sometimes hail does come and sometimes these things happen. So, people that argue against miracles will argue, well, I don't know that they
Well,
were
they've even said it was an earthquake, blah,
right.
blah, blah.
But the parting of the Red Sea, what was that? Why did that happen? For those who may not understand the story.
Well, it had to do with, the children of Israel, they were escaping their enemy. And in order to get wherever they were living at the time, I'm not good at all that history part, but wherever they were at the time, the only escape they had was to cross the sea to get away. And, when they got to the edge of the water, what are you going to do? You're not going to swim, that's for sure. So, God created an escape route for them, which they obviously followed, and were on dry land because the sea was parted. When they got as far as they needed to get, the enemy came after them, but then they reached safety, and the sea collapsed in on itself and destroyed their enemy. That's basically the story, right?
Right. And actually, I was, I think yesterday, reading through Genesis where um, uh, Abraham, so God appears to Abraham and says, I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And even tells Abraham that they'll go into captivity for 400 years. Even says this ahead of time. This is, a couple generations before it actually happened. And he tells Abraham ahead of time that they'll go and serve this other people. But it also says when they come out, they will be very, very prosperous or they will benefit somehow from it. And so this story is Joseph, rewinding to when Abraham had Isaac, and then Isaac had Jacob, and Jacob, his name is changed to Israel, and then Israel has 12 sons, and one of them, his favorite son, is Joseph, and his brothers sell him into slavery, and then he ends up in prison in Pharaoh's prison, and then a famine comes, and Joseph is rescued from prison by Pharaoh because Pharaoh had a dream. Joseph interprets the dream. The interpretation of the dream is there's a famine coming. There's going to be years of prosperity and years of famine. So you should store up food for the years of famine that coming later. And Pharaoh says, okay, you do it. So Joseph becomes this powerful person in Egypt, and all of his family come and live in Egypt. And then they reproduce. So the 12 tribes of Israel start out in Egypt under Pharaoh, and they end up becoming slaves, but they multiply and they become this huge minority population. And so then 400 years later, there's like 3 million of them or something like that. There's just like millions of them in Egypt. And it's time, for whatever reason, like Moses sees his people being treated like slaves, and he wants to do whatever he can to deliver them. He kills an Egyptian, and they're like, what, you're going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? And so he escapes, and then God appears to him in the desert. Here I am summarizing everything. Appears in the desert, and God says, go and deliver my people. Tell them it's time to get out. And Moses is like, what? He's like, Pharaoh will let him go. Trust me. That's what God says. Yeah, trust me. Pharaoh will let him go. And then there's the 10 plagues. Finally, after the 10th plague, which is Passover, which we just celebrated recently, the angel of death passed over everyone who sacrificed the lamb and put the blood on the doorpost, and the angel of death came and killed the firstborn of every living creature in Egypt. And Pharaoh's like, okay, that's enough. You guys can go. And it says that as the Israelites are getting ready to leave, they're accumulating all this wealth from their neighbors, like all this gold. I don't know if it was like they were just giving their Egyptian neighbors were giving them this stuff, or how it just happened that they were, as they were packing up their things, they're also packing up all these valuables, and they're extremely, wealthy. And so not only are they the slave labor that Egypt has depended upon is now leaving, so their economy is about to tank, but also their valuables, a big portion of their gold and silver and precious stones, etc., are going with them. And so they're heading off into the desert, and behind Moses, after these miraculous signs. And then Pharaoh has a change of heart. He's like, no, you guys can't go. Wait. And so he mounts up his whole army and pursues after them. And so here they are. They're like, now we're going to be massacred out here in the desert, and we're stuck at this river, the Red Sea. And God says, just stick your staff in the water, and boom, and it separates, and they all cross on dry land. And then Pharaoh's army pursues after them, and Pharaoh's army, it says the waters close. So it's all of these events. So it's this spectacular miracle of God delivering his people out of slavery and oppression in a miraculous way. Yeah, I think that's pretty incredible miracles. The Bible's a history book. I mean, the historical passages should be interpreted as history, and the poetic and the figurative passages should be interpreted as poetry and the apocalyptic literature, etc. But this is a history. This is an account of something. It purports that it actually happened, and we have no reason not to believe it happened, unless you don't believe in miracles, right?
Well, you can't appreciate the significance of the miracle until you know the details behind it, like you just described.
Right. Now it's like, oh, why would God do
what led up to this?
Yeah.
It's like a miracle and a miracle and a miracle in a miracle, and then there's the big miracle.
Yeah. Well, there are also things in the Bible, in the Old Testament in particular, that a lot of people account as miraculous that might not have been miraculous. Like, whoa, did that really happen? What a miracle. Like the parting of the Red Sea is not one of those. It's clearly a supernatural, a divine intervention. But I'm gonna I'm gonna do another slate here, and this will be a tease for the next segment coming up. I want to talk about a miracle or an event that people think was a miracle that made. I think there was a miracle involved in the story, but I think people are thinking about it wrong, that the miracle, they think this one thing was a miracle, but really the miracle was something else. So uh,
Okay.
let me tease that next segment coming up later today. We're going to talk about David and Goliath.
Okay.